Backstage Pass.
Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Backstage Pass. I'm your host, Vince Edwards from Sound Image Productions. You might also know me from, Facebook. We've got a couple pages, closed rotary groups, the Backstage Pass and Death by Loadout. Here tonight with me is my good friend, Kyle Thomas. Kyle Thomas, how are you, brother?
Good. How about yourself, man?
Man, it's another beautiful day in California. What is it, 88 degrees?
It's looking like 88. Yeah, it's a little hot today.
But, it works. We're lucky to be here. Coastal California, can't complain about that.
Mm-hmm.
Been some changes going around in the shop. We're adjusting. We got crazy time. We all know this. Work is slight. So we're making some moves over here and making things happen. Lighting department fussing on some stuff. Audio doing their things. More training as usual. Same with the S6L training. That thing is, these guys are going to be gods on this board by the time they're done.
Yeah, I'm proud. Everybody's coming in and putting in the time. That's really important. So
exactly.
It's good to see everybody showing their face here and there.
Sound Image has been backing that play, and of course with the assistance of Mr. Robert Scoville of Avid and every other thing, Def Leppard, Tom Petty.
They're all supporting it.
Yeah, it's been really great. Great to see you guys doing it. How was your week? What'd you get up to?
Good, man. I'm just starting to mix a lot more. I'm trying to gear towards the broadcasting world, so it's getting back on Pro Tools a bit more.
Yeah.
Really focusing on, linear phase EQ and just like focusing on, getting concepts down. Just utilizing the fact that it's a filter that applies a time delay, not just to the frequencies that are affected on the filter, but everything that's passed through it, which creates like a true time delay.
Exactly.
And more accurate representation of the waveform.
Absolutely.
So a great little plug is, the FabFilter Pro 2 or the Q2 is a great start for that. You can oversample with it. I've found that it's a really great tool in my arsenal that I've added on to it.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you playing with it, and I know sometimes I guess what would you say the basic understanding of that device has gotten away from people, and
there's so many options,
Yeah.
The EQ now you can do mid-side techniques, all sorts of stuff just in one EQ.
Yeah.
So dive in deeper.
It's a new frontier.
Yeah, and trying to add it into the live sound knowledge has just been a great mixture.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And any plans for the weekend?
Nothing yet. We'll see. Maybe having a barbecue, trying to keep it low. Like I was saying, just staying at the house and mixing mostly. So
super fun. Say hi to the girl for me.
Right on, I will.
Yeah, right on, Daddy. In our never-ending quest here on the show, we're trying to bring you some guys that are just. Sometimes it's actually hard to even articulate the length and breadth of these careers, the millions of fans they've touched, the shows they've brought to the scene. Some of these guys have forgotten more shows than you might do in your whole career because of the way we used to tour back in the day. A lot of long days and a lot of shows. But tonight we went deep.
Yeah.
We get some good guests.
I know. You pulled one out that had a lot of wisdom whiskers on it.
Yeah, right? Like, we went down deep and got a great friend, Bay Area legend, friend of the family, friend of the company, friend of the show. He's done it all. I mean, I got a card here. I had to rewrite this a couple times because there was just so much stuff. He's known as one of the best production managers out there.
He started crying. Don't let him.
There was tears. That happened. I'll admit it. I can admit it. He's worked with everybody from ZZ Top to Rolling Stones to, my God, the list is endless. Journey. He's done more Grateful Dead shows than I think any individual technician I can think of. The list is long. Dolly Parton, huge tour. Dolly Parton, you have to think about that. Massive tour. Was involved in one of the biggest festivals of all time. The one, the only, AJ Fardella. Sir.
Vince, thank you very much. Glad to be here. Kyle,
Yeah,
it's
man.
a pleasure. I'm very honored. Please don't set the expectation too high. I don't want to disappoint.
Well, like I said to you before earlier, I only say sincere stuff that I know from the heart or historical fact.
Thanks, Vince.
And so everything I just mentioned is absolutely the truth. You've seen and done. You're a pioneer. You're a mentor to many of us old guys. If you don't mind my your age,
Oh, no, I'm 62. I think I look darn good for
you are
62.
killing it, man. Seriously.
I just had
I'm still
major
lucky.
surgery, so I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, you know, the biggest blessing for me as I look back on it, you know, being in this industry, you know, over 45 years, is in April of 1996, this industry gave me Lisa Della Rocca, my wife, who gave me 3 beautiful children, 3 out of my 6. So I even got the best gal in the world out of rock and roll. So I'm the luckiest boy in the whole world.
Wow.
You know, I've been to several continents. I've been privileged to work with a lot of great people. You know, people like McFadden and Fred White and the Barsotti brothers and Dennis Jones, John Murray. You know, one of my all-time mentors really was Jimmy McCandless, who brought me in first at Journey. He's the one who saw a young kid who had a fire in him and brought me on the road in the middle of the tour, which doesn't happen very often, and that's how I got my first real break into the touring business.
I mean, and what a break. Journey at the height. I mean,
it was Journey in 1981.
Right,
We're the
they
number
were
one band in the world. It was
stadiums
fun.
out the door,
Yeah.
like crazy. These are crazy size shows, you guys. It's kind of an old way we used to do shows, but yeah, it's amazing. And to get in right there, what a sweet spot.
Well, Herbie Herberts, who was a
one and
genius
only.
at the time,
The legend.
you know, and he was very good with a penny. We actually toured
Yeah,
with our own
it was.
stage. There was a whole semi that was just the scaffolding and the decking. He wouldn't even source a local company to do the stage. We carried with us. So when we were done building the stage, okay, next you're on sound, you're on lights.
Yes.
So he made good work of us. You know, got his money's worth out of us back in those days. When I mean, in this day and age, everyone's so specialized. And rightfully so. It's a very technical industry, much more these days, even though we were at the bleeding edge in those days with the video screens and nocturne productions and all that stuff. But, you know, I wanted to tell one story that I thought about before this started, and it's a story that sort of brings you from the very first show that I ever worked all the way into the modern day, and it's focused on Chris Isaak, believe it or not.
I love Chris Isaak.
So I'm doing my first show as a young kid at University of Pacific. We have the tubes at the conservatory, so I'm really excited about this. The conservatory at UOP, by the way, is an acoustic marvel.
Yes.
It's just amazing. So I'm very excited about it. My good friend Rex Hartwell is the production manager. I'm his assistant. So I'm watching people take tickets at the beginning, and one of my ticket takers brings this young kid over to me and says, "I'm not sure about this ticket, AJ. Can you take a look at this?" And I look at this kid, and I look at the ticket, and I said, "Man, you did this, didn't you?" And he goes, "Yeah, I did that by hand." I said, "Shit, you're getting in the show, man. This is some of the best artwork I've ever seen in my life." So fast forward to the 80s, I did 6 half-hour TV shows for PBS at CSM when Stu Shafit was a production manager there. Mm-hmm. And at that time, they had a thing in the industry called A&R people.
Yeah, yes.
And I had to deal with the A&R people as any of the bands that they had that weren't famous yet, they wanted to get their name out. They would let us come with our little KCSM camera setup, 2-camera setup. I would direct, and we would interview them. And I had talent. Her name was Marina Marinovich. Anyway, we're interviewing this young upstart named Chris Isaak. And he starts telling the story of how he counterfeited a ticket to get into the tubes when he was in high school.
Wow.
And I stopped the shoot. And I said, "Hold on a minute, buddy. I'm the guy that let you into the show." And anyway, I ran into Chris at a benefit at Facebook just about, 8 years ago. It's hard to tell. Time sort of melts together, but we reminisced about it and had fun. And
that's a great story.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy. He's one of the nicest guys in rock and roll to work with. I love the relationship he has with Kenny, his drummer. Mm-hmm. There's a magic there to go out to dinner with him, and I swear it's a comedy
They're good
bit.
friends.
The way they do their thing, it's to be that cool. I'm a big fan, and he's a friend.
Well, he's also a UOP alumni like I am.
Yeah, so he's one of the good guys, as we should have suspected. We like origin stories here. How do you get from here to there? And but I know one thing about you. When you're a Bay Area guy, born and bred, Your people took you down in '66 to the infamous, really, moment where Jimi Hendrix did a set on the back of a flatbed truck.
That is a true story.
And you got to see that at, I don't know, 8, 10 years old.
I was 8 years old, actually.
Yeah.
The Panhandle is.
How did that affect your desire
Well, that
to
was
be in the music
actually,
business?
you know, I don't know if you can see it very well, but I'm wearing a
Mr.
shirt
Bill
that
Graham.
commemorates
Graham shirt.
Bill
Yes.
Graham,
BGP.
who was my boss for many years. And that was the first time I saw Bill.
Yeah.
It was 1966. It was a guy nobody had heard of yet in the States. They put him on a flatbed. They put him at the very end of Asbury in the Panhandle.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got some brownie pictures of it somewhere, you know, him with the guitar on fire and everything.
We would
And
love to see
that was the first time I saw Bill with the bushel of apples. I'll never forget it because,
That
you
was
know,
your spit.
Yeah.
The Apple thing.
and
Yeah.
so that was, yeah, I had these two uncles. One was a surfer, the other one was sort of a beatnik. And my mother was busy doing things, so she would push me off of my uncles. And I got to see a lot of great music thanks to that. And my mother had a boyfriend that worked at KYA. And, you know, that got us in to see Elvis and the Beatles when I was a kid. So, you know, I was very lucky in terms of being a local and having a mom that was somewhat flamboyant and,
Being born at the right time helps too.
yeah.
You know, you're right there in that
does.
sweet
A
spot.
lot of it's
I always
luck,
feel
man.
like that. You know, I'm a generation removed, and I always feel like because I came of musical age during when punk rock first happened, that I got to be a part of a movement too. So there's kind of that's a rare thing. You don't see much of that anymore. But there was whole times that that kind of would define rock and roll and move things forward
Sure.
in so many ways.
Well, the thing that got me started from college was that we were doing these things called co-promotes. And there was the only competition Bill Graham had at the time was Morning Sun Productions, which was run by a guy named Roy Dubrow and sort of partnered with a guy named Terry Persons, who was also the production manager for Pablo Cruz and Huey Lewis at the time. Anyway, I got talked into getting together and doing a labor call, actually, to start out with. And then it turned out to be a production call at this show that happened up in Angels Camp. And at that time, it was just a little show that happened in front of a barn. And we had some set pieces that this company called FM brought in. And that's when I met Richie Whites, who was the head of carpentry at FM Productions.
Yeah.
And he hired me on the spot. I came back to the shop at FM. That was the summer of 1977. And, you know, at that point, I was an engineering major, a music minor at University of the Pacific. And so I always had these two different career tracks going on in my life, engineering on one side and rock and roll on the other.
Well, you know, we'll get into that later because I think we have a surprise for the audience. I think they'll be surprised to know the other side of things you do when you're not busy. When you're not busy on the road making very large rock stars look really cool to thousands and thousands of people, you do this other thing. So what was the key moment? What was the thing what was your first, like, I would say, I guess, break as a production manager when you took over the show? Who made that?
I would say it would have to be Bill Barr gave me that break, and Bob Allen to somewhat of a degree, but I always, to be honest, looked like he was in my way. But you know, that's hindsight is 20/20. But it was Mountain Air.
Yeah.
That was my first break, and then after that, it was Richie White's. I mean, you know, my first break was Mountain Air, and then Richie White's got me in at FM. And then the Barsotti brothers, although Peter and I were famous for our arguments, that's for sure. In the end, but God rest his soul, before he passed away, we saw each other at a string cheese show. We sort of buried the hatchet. But
nice.
For those in the audience that don't know, Peter Barsotti was a legendary production manager for Bill Graham Presents.
Yes.
And, you know, Dennis Jones was another one of the, I mean, Bob Williamson, Fred White, of course, Juan Campos. You know, people that went back to what we call the old days. Many of them ended up on tour. Others are, you know, leaders even retired from local stagehands union. But we all started back at BGP at one point. But I think the first break was Mountain Air, but one thing leads to another. And really, you make your own opportunities. If I wasn't out there working hard, I don't think, things don't happen in a vacuum.
No, absolutely not. I know that also the audience might be interested to know that you were involved in one of the largest musical happenings. There must have been 250,000 people. The US Festival, a massive gathering, a 3-day event of some of the biggest rock bands in the world. You coordinated that. You were a big
No.
part of that.
I was just one of the many people
Of
that
course,
worked, but
yes.
Steve McFadden was one of the major coordinators. My cutoff's on and my hair's down to here, but that was an amazing experience. Steve Wozniak put up a ton of money.
Yeah.
It was very challenging environment. There was
Very hot.
106
Yeah.
degree average temperatures. There was dust like you wouldn't believe.
Poorly chosen, location.
Yeah, and we were wearing masks back then too. Yeah, it's a little joke.
Yeah, we don't do the pandemic politics.
No.
on the show.
It was a joke.
Masks are good. They're good for you. Do what you think is
But
right.
anyway, the US Festival was amazing. We spent months there getting it together. We had these crazy delay towers. It was Woodstock on steroids, 250,000 people a day.
Yeah.
And
It's legendary. It's
and we put it all
absolutely
together. I mean,
legendary,
that
yeah.
legendary moment where Ray Davies wouldn't come out on stage. I mean, I was right in the middle of that, watching Bill pound on the door and telling him, you know what, fuck you,
You'll
we'll just
never
pass
work
you
again.
Yeah, you will never work. It
Yeah,
was.
Bill had a way about it.
Excuse my French. I was just repeating what he said.
Well, no, Bill spoke French, and because of my age, I only knew him a few times.
Let me tell a story.
Tell us
Can I?
about Bill.
Bill, and this is an US Festival story about Bill, and this is a story I love to tell. There was a guy named Mo. He was a black fellow, and God rest his soul, he was awesome. And somebody at the US Festival called him a name,
Uh-oh.
and Bill went ballistic.
Oh, I could see
Found
that.
out who it was, fired the person on the spot. But then you have to remember, this is a huge project. There's literally thousands of us would go into a catering tent and eat at the same time. And it was a giant Ringling Brothers tent with picnic tables, okay, in the middle of this 106 degrees. So Bill, and Bill always told Mo, and BGP kept their word, up to a point. And Mo always had a job with BGP. But after that day, Bill always said, Mo, you will always have a job with me. And Bill always kept his word.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he gets up on the picnic table, and he's got everybody says, all right, I want everybody's attention right now. And I want everybody to know what happened. Somebody used an ethnic slur. And I don't ever want to hear that. If I hear, and he went through the list of every ethnic slur, and this is a man who survived
love to see
Auschwitz,
this.
right? But only Bill
Yeah.
could say all of these things. And he said, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear that. And then he would say it.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, and it was such a good thing I wasn't close to him, because he would have killed me. I was on the other side of the tent. I just couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny.
Well, he was a special guy. He went way too early. He also carved a path for us that we know as the live event. As more or less, I mean, they went a little smaller. It seems like there's some big shows, but the Bill Graham style shows were
Well, nobody has Wozniak's money to blow either.
That's a good point. Yeah, Woz did throw out some money. We have a friend in common. We have many friends in common, but one that was precious, a character, a legend, really, that we both spent time with. You much more. He was the production manager for Journey. His name was Benny Collins.
Yeah, very close friend, close
a
person.
dear man. The hair's going up on my arms right now. Just thinking about him, that voice, that southern, that big deep voice.
Wolfman Black, AJ, get over here. Where's my scrim?
What stagehand? What the hell?
You think you're gonna get paid?
Yeah, you got time to lean, you got time to clean, son. Yeah, it was
I own wolfmanblack.com, as a matter of fact.
That is so perfect.
Yeah.
That is, I made a meme out of it.
Benny and I met in '81 when I started working for Journey. At that time, he was the drum roadie. And like most bands, usually the drum roadie is the head person in charge. And, he was no exception and the epitome of the phrase I'm avoiding. And he was such a great man, was so hard on me when I needed somebody to be hard on me, and gentle and caring. And, I don't want to get choked up, but I was with him right up to the last bit when he was in the hospital. And, he's a real true friend. But very privileged to have worked with him. I mean, from Journey as drum roadie, he went on to be the production manager for them.
He
took
ran
the
that
reins
show.
and
Yeah.
ran the show for Herbie Herberts for many years. There's Pat Morrow, and Jimmy McCandless is one that another one that he actually left us very early.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I
Great
digress. Benny Collins, just a wonderful friend and great man. Roger Silver was another guy that was on the road and very close with Benny. And Steve McFadden and I put together the last loadout for Benny. And we had that at the Fox Bar in Oakland.
I was there.
That was it was a great time.
Wasn't it? It was extraordinary. It was hard to not be able to not cry at that thing.
Yeah.
The testimonials.
I'm crying right now.
The testimonials and the folks that were at that thing where that was the who's. It was amazing. It was so amazing. And I remember when they were doing the testimonials from the stairs, it was just to keep it together was bordering on impossible. It was lovely. And it was this man touched so many lives, trained so many of us to be professional, to be the best at what you do, and he
And-
cut you
and
an
he-
inch,
he-
and he
he
also
was
loved you to death. It was both. He had that weird thing where, like, I was terrified of him, and also knew when I could get a hug out of him. You know what
Sure.
I mean? Like you know what I mean? He had that love and that duality, and I think anybody who worked with him is the better for it. And he's missed. Yeah, we miss him. So I don't know. It's nice
Thank
to be
you
able to
for
talk to
bringing that up.
somebody
Yeah, he's,
that shared time with him, and
he's awesome. I mean, I think about Madonna, Michael Jackson. What I'm doing is going through the playlist that I made up for that memorial. I just went through every act that he had ever worked with. And, anybody who was big that had
truly
a big
the
show,
biggest
at the
stars in the
as
music,
well.
in the music business.
In '89, actually.
Yeah, I worry that the audience doesn't get that. That there were the go-to guys during a certain time in this business, and there's still a few of those guys out there for sure. Hell, we have them on the show, but like Doug,
You need to get
right.
You need to get Mac in here. Too.
You got to educate
Steven,
our
I'm
viewers.
going to be calling you, Mr. McFadden, if you would do us the honor. Yes, there's guys that you call when Michael Jackson wants to go out, when Madonna. Lady Gaga, who, know it or not, pulls down $200 million a tour. It's And
She's a nice lady.
She is wonderful.
Yeah.
Extraordinarily talented and funny. We were lucky enough to do her last year, middle of the year, and it was delightful. We're lucky to do the things we get to do. Other sides of you, there's a lot to you. You're first of all, you're a father. You're a father of
six children.
You got 5 boys, 1 girl. Tell us about it. Proud papa.
I am a proud papa. My oldest, Vince, he is 39 years old, and he goes out and does the IT stuff with Rock and Roll Networks. Black Diamond Data.
You named him after our Vince, right?
Yeah, my Vince.
Yeah.
My oldest, and I love Vince doubly because Vince was my favorite person. He was my grandfather.
Yes.
And he was, and so my very firstborn I named Vincent. And he's doing well. He's up in Folsom. And as soon as there's more work, I'm sure you'll see him out on the circuit.
That'd be great.
My other 2 sons, Tony and Frankie, it's hard to say what they're doing from one moment to the next, but as I like to tell them, they're grown-ass men. So
Worked out.
they did bless me with 3 grandchildren, which I get to see. So if they don't do anything else, I'm certainly very happy with them for that. And then, I started all over with this beautiful, super intelligent woman, Lisa Della Rocca. I met her backstage at a Zucchero show at the Warfield.
Okay.
And I was actually there doing some database work for the guy who was tour manager for Alice Cooper. Can't remember his name. Friend of Freddie's.
Yeah.
And I looked at this girl who just happened to be sitting backstage. And backstage, of course, is under the stage at the Warfield.
That's
you know, you come down.
Yeah, in the catacombs and all that.
And so I'm walking toward, and there's this girl, and I'm cussing in Sicilian, not very nice. I mean, really nasty stuff. And this little voice says, "That wasn't very nice." And I walked over and introduced myself, and the rest is sort of history. We had a little online relationship, and we have 3 beautiful children. Our oldest is Nicky. He's severely autistic. He's a big challenge, I will tell you. He's 260 pounds, and he gets in his mood. It's a little scary. So I don't go anywhere in the house without a taser. I'll tell you that right now.
Wow, nutty.
But other than that, he's a lovable kid, and he's gorgeous. Then I've got Mason. He's a straight A student, incredible artist. Mason Enrico, and then my prize is my daughter, who's going to be turning 15 July 5th. Isabel Verena May. And of course, she's spoiled rotten because she's,
Oh, good. Happy birthday, Isabella.
Yeah, when the first boy shows up, I'm sure you'll be cleaning one of your guns when you're happy to talk with him. I just getting that all worked out. Yeah, protect her.
Oh yeah.
There's we could go on and on about the names, your catalog of rock and roll. You really are. You've just seen and done and been through some of the stuff. I know FM Productions was really special. I mean, they did it all. Yeah, they built this.
They were the Tate of their day.
That's right.
Those people that don't even know who FM is.
They probably don't. Actually.
What did you guys used to say when real men did?
Well, FM actually started as Bill Graham's personal production company for making sets, and for doing the ginormous sets for the Day on the Greens. And they were originally just in this little warehouse adjacent to 201 11th Street. There was this warehouse that had a big, sliding door, one of those rack wheel doors.
Sure.
And that's where it started. That was before my time. I started in 77, and they were just moving. In fact, I was in the last part of the move of some of these old set pieces. Lord knows what they'd be worth now from these different shows that were done in the past on Minnesota Street. In Hunters Point, very bad neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we ended up expanding to the dog food factory across the way.
Cool.
And I mean, if anybody wanted a set in those days, they came to FM. And that's where we got our fame, was for the rock and roll work that we did. And we parlayed that into making money with industrials. Case Tractor, IBM, Bell Telephone, the Olympics. I mean, if it was a big production in those days, FM was behind it.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool you transition from that to what you do on your off time. It's like we were just talking about your little side projects. They're fascinating to me,
Yeah, thanks. It's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
Well, jumping over into so he actually has more side projects. The ones that are extraordinary, I think the ones you're referring to, and are fascinating and to me as well. I know that you have appeared on Larry King Live.
I was on Larry King Live.
What were you doing on Larry?
I was protecting a woman who was an undercover agent who unmasked John Mark Carr. And I don't know if you remember him. He was absolutely the rage in the news cycle for like 8 days straight.
Yeah.
At one point in our lives.
Bad guy.
He had been arrested in Thailand.
That's right.
And he claimed that he had killed John Benet Ramsey. And this gal, who's actually my second wife, I'll reveal here to the public. Her name is Wendy Hutchins. Hi, Wendy. And she went through this. She knew that the guy was twisted. And I have a copy of all these tapes. And he literally, in these tapes, says that he is going to plant DNA evidence. He's not going to leave any of his own. He's going to confess to it. And when they run the DNA, he'll be excluded. And he will get away with it based on this. He said this. I have a recording of this guy saying it. So, I mean, it's a crazy case, and she didn't trust anybody. We weren't even married at the time, so it does show that we still have a relationship aside from our. We have children, of course,
sure,
and her daughter Janae, who's wonderful. But anyway, that's how I ended up on Larry King. They wanted to interview her. We had some of the excerpts from the tape. So,
and this was an overseas thing, so it was the first time that somebody, because you end up getting busted.
He did get busted, but then on the case because he left the country. The reason he was in Thailand is because of the case she got him busted on. But it was 20 years old or by this time, or 15, however many years. Well, they messed up the evidence. So he bounced on that. He ended up bouncing on that. And he's had a section. I've sort of tracked him here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's aware of me. And when you get involved in these, we sort of did a weird segue here. When you get involved in these law enforcement cases, you know, I've gotten scared finally. You know, I'm a pretty arrogant person. I think you know from dealing with me all these years. But there was a couple of them where I realized, like, whoa, you know, this is this is a nut. This is somebody who could.
There's some bad people
who could hurt me. Yeah,
Dude, look at you. You got a whole onion.
That's when you go get some more double ot.
Yeah, that's right. Load up.
There's a whole onion. We don't even know these layers.
Well, but he's done more. Don't you?
Anyway, so that's how we ended up on Larry King, and was because of that situation. We also ended up on Nancy Grace and all that. As soon as it's so funny when you go through these things, right? How the news. I mean, I was getting calls from everywhere, wanting an interview, wanting to get the rights to play the tape on their news program because we owned the rights of the tape. That was the way we're able to monetize it.
Yeah.
And as soon as the DNA didn't match, boom, we were yesterday's news, just like that.
That's how that works. That's how that was back in the old hard copy days and all those types of shows.
And then, you know, in doing my engineering thing, I ended up as an instructor for a company called Learning Tree. And through Learning Tree, I hooked up with a gentleman from the Secret Service, Al Lewis, who shepherded me into being a contractor with the federal government and working at headquarters on Northwest H Street in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So my secret agent period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been revealed.
Yeah. And I did a database that at that time, the Secret Service was the only people who could track your wireless phone. Mm-hmm. They were the only ones that actually owned the technology to find somebody. And so if you wanted use of that technology, you had to go through a process.
Yeah.
And so I invented a database that went through the process, including assigning cars, agents, how that turned out, who the case. It was
Detailed.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was fun.
Sounds complex.
You're like a 00 Entertainment now. You
Yeah.
know?
What? Yeah.
That's a badass logo for a name.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not.
I can't get into too much detail without getting myself in hot water.
Are they following me right now? Do you know?
Oh, absolutely not. They could give
They're
me flying toss about you, bro. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
Damn it.
I don't
want
mean to
be
blow your
followed.
boat out of the water, but they're not even listening to me anymore. They used to.
Yeah, I bet. Is he telling anybody our secrets? Yeah. That type of stuff.
Anyway, then I got this. When we moved to Pittsburgh, you know, I got involved with the local Sicilians and all that. I got into politics. That's something I forgot to tell you about. I'm glad it just dawned on me.
What?
9 years of my life I was planning commissioner in Pittsburgh.
No kidding.
Yeah, for 9 years.
Yeah. Again, it's like you wear, you know,
I know,
a
I'm
cape
crazy,
on this,
right?
and then I see you, and you're in your shorts and your roadie wear, and
So I meet this family, and I meet this cat, and he comes to me, calls me, says, I have this girlfriend, and his name is Jimmy, and her name is Leandra Ram, and she was an opera singer, actually, up-and-coming opera singer from New York. She had a recording contract. She was doing well, and this guy pretty much ruined her through a lot of different online stalking methods. I mean, he really is the dean of cyber stalkers.
Oh, creepy.
I should probably write a book about this. I've dealt with 16 different cases. People have come to me because of the notoriety I had from dealing with her case. Anyway, to cut to the chase on her case, finally, from a fingerprint, from a letter she had sent me, I pulled a favor from my friend in the FBI. They took it to Quantico. They had his fingerprint record from when he went to school in the United States, when he came into the country. And so, armed with that, I sent it to the Singapore police and shamed them into arresting him. And they actually made a law, spoke about her case in Parliament in Singapore. He spent 3 years, hard time, in Singapore jail.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm all set.
And unfortunately, we're still the only international cyber stalking conviction today. It tells you how screwed up the system is.
Well, it seems like they're reluctant to impose certain laws on the internet. And in many ways, that's good for free speech. In other ways, when
Sure.
when
Unless you're a victim.
well, not just a victim, but say you don't like what's being said. We have somebody
I have
talking about
the
that right
solving equation. It's
That's-
self-exploding
I hate
computers.
that. I've always felt that Mein Kampf should be right next to the Bible, and for this reason only: is that sword cuts both ways. If you're cutting somebody else's viewpoint out today, they could be using that same sword to cut your viewpoint out tomorrow. So just keep that in mind as we go through this crazy life we're going through right now.
I have a large Facebook presence with about 18,000 people,
And
right?
by the way,
and
I wanted to hand it to you.
What's that?
Man, you're the master of Facebook. You're the master of this
Stop
whole
it.
domain.
I mess around. I got a little bit of free time.
He's got a face next to his face. That's
What?
how important he
What?
is.
What do you
It's
where's
legit.
that?
You're a
Oh.
brand, for goodness sake.
We have pens. Thank you, honey. I love you. My wife got me pens and cups, and so sweet. God, I love that woman. Listen, I know. So you do this type of stuff too, but I know you still do shows. You're up at Harrods all the time, putting on the big shows. Janet and whoever else comes through.
I'm lucky to have done 21 seasons up at Harrah's.
Yeah.
Harvey's Outdoor Arena, Lake Tahoe, working with Fred White, who's my lifelong partner in crime, through Shoreline with McFadden and Cal Expo days, and we did the Reno Hilton when there was a stage out there. I don't know. I'm just going through history. A lot of this could be before either one of you guys coming onto the scene.
Oh, you know how we met. It was Cal Expo gigs and Harvey's, I believe.
And the only one I didn't know in that was the Reno Hilton.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a little interim thing.
Yeah, I
that
hadn't
we
heard
did.
of that one.
It was Cal Expo was actually still going on, and we built the stage. Essentially, that we moved up to Tahoe. We basically took
same
we did
one?
at the Reno Hilton
Yeah.
and moved it up to Harris.
The wor-
Much better location.
Worst things could happen in life. Being stuck
I'm
in Tahoe.
so blessed to be able to do shows in that beautiful arena that, frankly, Fred has designed from the ground up using all of our experience. Fred also helped me every year for 13 years straight up at Mountain Air.
Fred White is a special man among men.
Absolutely.
He's a legend too. Fred in his own right is
incredible
a
legend
yeah.
in production. He helped me bring that thing from a few scrims next to a barn into where we were a football field long, to where we were
That's
basically doing a day on the green up there at Angels Camp. We had the biggest grossing show in '86.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Anyway, Freddie has done a fantastic job in Tahoe, and I'm hoping that we'll get back going next season. It's too bad this season hasn't happened, but we've had so many top name artists. We've had Elton a couple times. We've had it's easier for me to put up a list of
Who hasn't played?
Who hasn't played.
Yeah, that's right. But it is the standard awesome bands, like you said, Janet, some of the big country artists.
Aerosmith, Stevie Wonder.
Everybody's come through at that venue, and you're the
big
man.
country acts
Yeah,
as well.
between you and Freddie, you're always there. Well, and Jesse Battle. Jesse Battle
Absolutely.
too. Got to show
We
love,
can't go
Jesse
through
Battle.
without Jesse's there,
Yeah.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
And Walter Giordano is there.
Exactly. It's been a crazy time.
And Renee and Sherry, of course.
Yeah, we can name check that whole place, but we don't have time, unfortunately.
Wait, I have a list of names.
Shout outs. You're going to do shout outs? You're the first guest to have done shout outs.
No, I think I've covered everybody, I hope. If I haven't, then they can scream at me later. I don't see them on the list. They're not watching live, so they don't have room to critique me after the fact.
Well, we'll see. Like I said, crazy time, politically, the pandemic, the virus, what's happening in our business in particular is, we're the first
big
one
deal.
down and maybe the last one's back up. And it's been kind of a global effect. in your opinion, based on the fact that you got 40 years in this thing, we've seen some weirdness.
Sure.
But what do you think the future holds?
Well, it's an opportunity for companies like mine who are already in the IT business. We need to bring screening to the forefront of our industry. It is really a great point that you are reminding me of, and I'm actually doing that right now. That's the way it's going to be. People are going to be screened as they come in. Most of these machines are somewhat sensitive, so in a festival environment, you're going to make your crowd walk under a tent so they can be in the shade. Can't really get a good temperature reading on somebody when they're out in the sun, or if they've been walking in the sun. People will give you an artificial high in terms of their temperature. So, there's other logistics that you need to think about, because you don't want to fail people that don't really have a temperature or who aren't really sick. If they just walked 100 yards through the heat and I take their temperature, guess what? Their temperature is going to be over the normal and past the screening. So there's a lot of thought. Somebody like me or you that has been through thousands of shows, has to think about all of these different facets, these different attributes and their values, so that we can protect the public as best we can using the technology at our disposal. So that's all the way from these dual cameras that have a heat camera right next to a video camera. They superimpose the heat pattern over the video pattern. So, this guy is above my threshold. It has we would relate it to infrared, but it's not really infrared technology. They're called heat cameras. I dealt with them in the old days when I was doing some work for...
I do know about that.
Yeah. And so you'll have these devices that'll measure people in controlled circumstances. You'll have the handheld devices, and people are going to have to be... I think the smartest way is for people to screen the questions online before they get to the festival, so I don't have to stand there and say, do you have a cold? Do you have any of these symptoms?
Yeah.
And all of these things. You can go ahead and satisfy the legal requirement and the fiduciary obligation to protect your patrons from this disease as best you can.
See, that's a much smarter approach than I would have had. I just would have gone straight for the bum thermometer. Every festival goer. There's no skipping that.
No. You want to see Disturbed?
Yeah.
You're gonna be extra.
Yeah, have me throw a festival.
So like a lot of other folks,
Right, man. You think we're going to have some action, though? Do you think we're going to get to what?
Well, I look forward to the day when none of this nonsense is necessary, and the good folks who are much smarter than we are in the medical profession provide us some normalcy to our lives again. And I'm literally on my knees praying for that.
Well, it looks like there's some developments coming in the pipeline with vaccines. Apparently, there's a treatment that helps people that already have it. A bunch of stuff that can be done.
Good.
I know that we both want the same thing, and that's a healthy population going to concerts.
I want our industry to start back up. I mean, it's paralyzed us. This whole
equipment's in here.
This whole COVID situation. I literally had the best year of my career, income-wise and opportunity-wise. The things that I was working on are just fabulous, and the money, and it went to a screeching halt, to zero. So it's been very difficult.
Yeah.
But I also have had an opportunity to count my blessings.
Yeah.
Grow a little closer to the family, and think about opportunities that are involved, such as screening people when things get going again. Mm-hmm. Just another facet to
You might
the
be able
technology that my company offers.
That's right. Well, I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been having you here. I could talk to you all night. I really could. We got stories. Actually, we've been here for a couple hours. We had barbecue. It was really a treat to spend so much time with you, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
I couldn't have had a better guest. I really appreciate you, brother.
Thanks a million, Vince.
You bet, brother. Young man, as you know, we got some business to do to wrap this thing up.
Give it to me.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank the good people. First of all, we do this here at Sound Image Productions, and I want to thank my brother George Edwards, the general manager, for allowing us this space. He's a big man.
We saw him today. He showed his face.
Yeah.
He looked good.
Yes, he did. And, of course, the one and only Dave Shadone. CEO of Southern California Sound Image, and the big chief in charge. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, David.
Really appreciate this. Also, the good people at LSV, they supply us with some cameras. If you want to throw on a big show with a lot of lead, you call Large Screen Video and John Rigney. Thank you, John. We really appreciate it. We also do practice social distancing and, the hand sanitizers. We get the good people at slowfiber.com. They take care of all of our sewing needs. They made us some personalized masks, sound image masks. There's some of the guys down south wearing them. They also sew our tech drape and do other things. They're a great company if you need them for entertainment type stuff. We appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. I couldn't do it without the help of my crew. Michael Brown behind the camera is the man. Thank you, Mikey. Great job.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, buddy.
John Edwards, I forgot.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Johnny Edwards checked in. Hello, Johnny Edwards. He's a friend and got a great last name. I'm just going to say that.
Right?
Yeah.
No, he's been at all these shows that I mentioned, helping me out.
Yeah, he's a good man. And it looks like Jorge Aguado checked in with us. Hey, buddy. Super good.
Hi, honey.
Yeah. And and it looks like, is that your wife?
Yes, that's Lisa.
Oh, that's
Rocca,
so sweet. Oh,
the attorney.
Love is a good thing.
So you got better eyes than I do. I can't read
I don't know what
that.
she sees in me, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Hi, honey.
Making me look bad.
And I get a complaint from our head of human resources here that we didn't barbecue with her. Sorry about that, Christine. Next time I got your back. All right, listen, we love you guys. We appreciate you tuning in. Next week we got a wild man on the show. He's from the East Coast. I love the flavor of this guy. I miss him like crazy. We got a patter. He's an LD for some of the biggest rock bands ever. He's a badass. He's a crazy man, and he's coming on. That's going to be Tom Thompson, and we're looking forward to it. It's next Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on YouTube. If you like what we do, please subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, thanks for coming out. Have a good evening.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Vince.
You bet, brother. Thank you. Good night.